Hi guys, it is the 7th of April 2026, and this is a video about learning when to say no, the context of saying no, and like when to turn things down and when to leave and when to I guess take the power back into your own hands, because a lot of times we're put into situations that we feel aren't right for us to be in, but we look at the people around us that are also there, and we look at the people, that have been there, and we're just like, okay, you know, I can be here. This is something I can do. But you also got to look at the opposite side of it. This is a bit of a drastic way, but look at the worst case scenario possible. Maybe you end up homeless and you end up in a really bad position and you have to flee the country, but you're still alive and you can still rebuild. And that's really drastic, and I can't really speak from that position because I haven't been in a position as difficult as that. But you can take it in smaller doses where, let's say you're at a party and you don't like it. There's something off. You're not having a good time. When you just get up and leave, everyone else is staying there and you feel like you have to stay there too. But if you just get up and leave, it's not going to be the end of the world, Maybe people might ask why. You could make up an excuse or tell them I didn't want to be there, It's not going to be the end of the world. Like, example is today, I had to turn down a promotion that I would sort a lot of stuff out for me because it was a promotion where I would be getting paid more, but I'd just be filling out spreadsheets and on a computer, and that's not what I'm looking for. So I said no, even though it would have really helped certain parts of my situation. I wasn't going to sacrifice my mental health or sacrifice my kind of what is aligned with me and what is not, so I can get more money. And I thought it was the end of the world because that promotion would have really helped me, but I have a feeling that it'll work out for me in the future regardless, And I think that when it comes to your choices and choosing whether or not to say no, choosing whether or not to leave, you have to look at, people say look at the long term, but I would say look at the short term. Look at what's really going to happen in the short term, and if it's really that bad. Because if you have to look at long term, and you can imagine anything happening in the long term, but it's like dropping there's a wasp. Oh, it's a bit windy. Hold on, let me set this here. This is not a very good outside stand. As I was saying, let's say you drop a piece of paper and that piece of paper blows across the road and someone driving notices it, which causes them to hit a biker, which ends the biker's life. That's a very extreme example, but if you look at the long term, you have no idea what your choices now are going to end up. But if you look at the short term, if I drop this piece of paper, the very weird example, but can I am I okay with maybe the wind blowing it away and me losing it? Or am I okay with it getting a little dirty? You know, you just gotta look at the, like, am I okay with leaving this party? Am I okay with leaving my friends here? Or something like that. And you just gotta look at the short term, because in the long term, there's no way of telling what these actions will do. And so you have to protect your kind of what is aligned with you and what is not aligned with who you are, and protecting that instead of trying to predict everything. And that's especially true especially with who you are and doing things aligned. It's a lot easier to make those decisions of what's aligned with you and what's not in the now, rather than looking what will be aligned with me in 10 years. And that goes back to a really good philosophy. You see it a lot in Stoicism, and it's called memento mori, and it's about your mortality, and it's about that you're gonna die one day. And whether or not you know when you're gonna die, because nobody knows when they're gonna die. You could die at any point, you know? And it's not like treat every day like it's your last, because it's more just the awareness of knowing that any day could be your last. It's about knowing that you might not have 10 years, you know? You might not have 20 years. And that lets you focus on the smaller decisions, but also allows you to build like a future long term. But yeah, that's kind of just all I wanted to cover. I think a lot of people want a lot of stuff from other people nowadays, and I think it's important to understand yourself, understand what's aligned with you and what's not, and make the decisions to say no to things that aren't. Because, yeah, it'll get you into positions that you don't want to be in, you know? And if you act in alignment with yourself, anything that comes from that, you can be like, you know, this is just part of my journey. And this is something I have to take on. Whether if you don't act aligned with yourself and something bad happens, then you're like, I shouldn't be taking this on. I'm taking this on because I wasn't acting in line with myself. You know, this isn't something I should be having to deal with, I guess. But yeah, that's just my 2 cents on it. I think that's the end of the day.